There's a moment in life that no one prepares you for. It's the silence after bad news. It's when your chest tightens as you look at your bank balance, realizing it's not enough. Maybe it's the day your job ends suddenly. Maybe it's when a loved one gets sick. Or maybe it's just that quiet fear that sits in the back of your mind, whispering, "What if something goes wrong?" We've all felt that fear. The kind that doesn't let you sleep. The kind that makes every plan feel fragile. Because without financial security, even small problems can feel like mountains. A broken appliance turns into a crisis. A delay in salary becomes panic. Life, instead of feeling like something you're living, starts to feel like something you're surviving. But imagine this instead. Imagine waking up one morning knowing that no matter what happens, you're covered. The unexpected car repair, handled. The surprise medical bill, managed. The layoff, not ideal, but you'll be okay. That's what an emergency fund gives you. It's not about becoming rich. It's about becoming calm. It's about quiet confidence. The kind that whispers, "I'm safe." And here's the truth no one tells you. Security isn't about how much you earn. It's about how prepared you are. I've met people who make six figures and still live in fear of the next bill. And I've met others who earn modestly but sleep peacefully because they built their safety net one small step at a time. You see, an emergency fund isn't built overnight. It's built with patience, choices, and courage. It's built in the moments you decide to say, "I'll save a little today so I can breathe easier tomorrow." It's the foundation beneath every dream. Because without stability, it's hard to chase anything bigger. Maybe no one ever taught you about money. Maybe every time you tried to save, something came up and you told yourself, "I'll start next month." This audiobook is here to change that, not through shame or strict rules, but through understanding, compassion, and a practical plan that actually fits your life. Because here's the secret. Building an emergency fund isn't just a financial act. It's an emotional one. It's a promise to yourself. A statement that says, "I'm done living in fear. I deserve stability. I deserve peace." Over the next 30 minutes, we'll walk through exactly how to make that promise real. We'll break it down step by step. From setting a goal that makes sense for you, to finding small ways to save that don't feel impossible, to protecting what you build so it's always there when you need it. So take a deep breath. This isn't just about money. It's about freedom. It's about dignity. It's about being ready for whatever life brings your way. Because when the next storm comes, and it will, you'll be standing strong. And you'll know deep down that you did something powerful for yourself. You built safety. You built peace. You built an emergency fund. When you decide to build an emergency fund, the first question that often comes to mind is, how much do I actually need? And the truth is, that number looks different for everyone. Some say 3 months of expenses, others say 6. But behind every number is a feeling you're chasing. Security. Imagine being able to cover your rent, groceries, and bills for a few months without panic. That's not just a financial goal. That's emotional space. It's breathing room. It's knowing that when life pauses, you don't have to break. So start with that, not a random number, but a vision of what peace looks like for you. The mistake most people make is setting goals that feel impossible. They decide they need thousands saved right now, and when they can't make it happen in a few weeks, they give up. But an emergency fund doesn't start big. It starts small, steady, and consistent. If all you can save is $10 a week, start there. What matters isn't how fast you move. It's that you begin, because momentum, once created, is powerful. Over time, small steps grow into something strong and reliable. And one day, without realizing it, you'll look at your balance and see proof that discipline can quietly change your life. So, instead of thinking, I'll never get there, think, I'm already on my way. The goal isn't perfection, it's protection. Every deposit is a small act of defiance against uncertainty. It's you saying, I'm choosing stability in a world that never stops changing. The number you choose, whether it's 3 months of expenses or just enough to cover one, isn't about comparison. It's about control. You set the goal, you decide the pace, and that decision alone puts power back in your hands. To set a goal that feels real, you have to understand your life, your actual costs, your needs, your responsibilities. So take a moment to look at what it really takes to live each month. Not what you wish you spent, but what you actually do. Rent, food, utilities, transportation, debt payments. It's all part of the picture. It might feel uncomfortable at first, facing those numbers, but that awareness is where transformation starts. Because when you see your true cost of living, you can finally build a plan that matches your reality, not someone else's. And here's something beautiful about this process. When you write it down, every expense, every recurring cost, you begin to see patterns. You notice where your money goes and where it escapes. You might realize that you've been paying for things that don't add value to your life, or that small changes could make a big difference. This isn't about cutting joy. It's about choosing purpose. Every rupee, every dollar is a reflection of your choices. And when you start paying attention, you start taking control. Once you understand your expenses, setting your goal becomes simple math. But the meaning behind it is anything but simple. It's the amount that buys you peace of mind. It's the sum that says, if something happens, I'll be okay. Whether it's 2 months, 3 months, or more, what matters most is that it feels achievable. Because a goal that feels possible is one you'll fight for. A goal that feels impossible is one you'll forget. So pick a number that stretches you, but doesn't break you. A number that says, this is my first step toward freedom. Your goal becomes your anchor, but to stay grounded, you need a timeline. It's not enough to say, I want to save 6 months of expenses. You have to ask, by when? Because goals without time frames are just wishes, and wishes fade. Maybe your plan is to reach your target in a year. Maybe it's 2. The timeline doesn't matter as long as it's realistic. Life will keep throwing distractions, but when you attach a time to your dream, it becomes tangible. You can see it, you can measure it, and most importantly, you can track your progress. The timeline also teaches patience, something our world rarely rewards. In a time of instant results and fast everything, saving is slow, deliberate, and deeply personal. But that slowness is its strength. It reminds you that real stability takes time. You're not just building an account. You're building a habit, a mindset, a foundation that will serve you for the rest of your life. Each month you meet your savings target. You prove to yourself that you're capable of consistency. And consistency, more than anything, creates change. And maybe along the way, you'll surprise yourself. You'll skip a few wants. You'll find clever ways to stretch your income. You'll discover that saving isn't a sacrifice. It's empowerment. Every small win, every deposit, is proof of your resilience. And one day, when you hit your goal, you'll realize it was never just about money. It was about confidence. It was about learning that you can rely on yourself. That's the real goal, not a number in your account, but strength in your spirit. Before you can move forward, you have to see exactly where you stand. Most people avoid this part because it's uncomfortable. Facing your money honestly can feel like holding up a mirror to parts of your life you've been ignoring. But this step isn't about guilt or judgment. It's about clarity. Because you can't fix what you don't understand. Sit down with your bank statements, your bills, your spending history. Look at the story your money is telling you. You might notice months where things felt tight and others where you had breathing room. The point isn't to punish yourself. It's to see clearly. Awareness is the first step toward change. Once you start looking, patterns appear. You might realize that certain habits drain your balance more than you thought. Daily takeout, and used subscriptions, impulsive online buys that felt harmless at the time. Everyone has those blind spots, but seeing them is empowering because now you can make choices consciously. You begin to understand your flow, how money enters your life and how it leaves. That understanding turns anxiety into action. Suddenly, your finances stop being a mystery and start becoming something you can shape. And as you go through this process, remind yourself that this isn't about perfection. You're not trying to become a financial expert overnight. You're just taking ownership. You're saying, I deserve to know where my money goes. That simple awareness creates emotional freedom. Because when you understand your money, you take away its power to control you. You begin to lead it, not chase it. And that shift from chaos to clarity is where everything starts to change. Now that you can see the big picture, it's time to notice where you can make space. Sometimes it's not about earning more. It's about keeping more. Look closely at your spending and ask, what do I truly need? And what just fills the silence? You'll find that some expenses don't bring joy or value. They just fill gaps of boredom or stress. Recognizing that doesn't mean you have to strip your life of comfort. It simply means being intentional. Because every dollar that isn't wasted becomes a seed for your safety net. As you trim away the unnecessary, something magical happens. You start to feel lighter, less clutter, and your spending means less noise in your mind. You begin to see what truly matters. That morning coffee you thought you couldn't live without? Maybe it's not about giving it up forever, but about choosing it consciously, not habitually. The goal isn't restriction, it's awareness. When you spend with purpose, you feel control, and that feeling is worth more than anything money can buy. Every cut, every conscious choice is a quiet form of self-respect. You're not depriving yourself. You're prioritizing yourself. You're saying, my future peace is worth more than my current impulse. And that shift changes everything. You start saving not because you're afraid of emergencies, but because you're building strength. You stop reacting to life and start preparing for it. And that's the kind of power no price tag can define. Once you've cleared space, it's time to look for potential. The hidden opportunities that already exist within your current life. Maybe it's a skill you can monetize, a side project you've ignored, or simply money that could be redirected from one area to another. Sometimes, the resources you need are already within reach. They're just scattered. When you pause and reflect, you begin to see the possibilities. And suddenly, the gap between where you are and where you want to be starts to look smaller. This stage is about creative thinking, turning I can't into what if. What if you use that refund, bonus, or gift money to grow your emergency fund instead of spending it? What if you challenge yourself to have one no-spend week each month and redirected those savings? Little shifts create powerful results. You don't need a huge income jump to make progress. You just need consistency and awareness. And here's the beautiful truth. As you identify these opportunities, your mindset starts to evolve. You stop feeling like a victim of your finances and start feeling like the architect of your security. You realize that progress isn't about sudden change. It's about steady alignment between your actions and your priorities. That's how wealth begins, not with a windfall, but with wisdom. And by this point, you're no longer afraid to face your finances. You're inspired by what's possible. Once you face your finances and found clarity, the next step is turning intention into action. It's one thing to want an emergency fund. It's another to build it brick by brick. The best way to begin is with a realistic monthly goal, one that feels achievable, not overwhelming. If you try to save too much too fast, you'll burn out and quit. But if you start small with consistency, you'll build momentum, and momentum is everything. Think of it like planting seeds. Each small deposit may not look like much at first, but with time, patience, and care, it grows into something steady and strong. Start by deciding how much you can comfortably set aside each month without putting yourself under stress. Even if it's just a small percentage of your income, it matters. Because saving isn't about the amount, it's about the habit. Once you train your mind to prioritize your future self, every paycheck becomes an opportunity, not a limitation. You begin to shift from "I can't afford to save" to "I can't afford not to." That's a powerful transformation. You start seeing your savings goal not as a burden, but as a promise, one that you're determined to keep. And as you continue, you'll notice something subtle but profound. Saving becomes addictive. Each time you add to your fund, you feel a little stronger, a little safer. You realize that you're building a cushion between yourself and chaos, and that feeling is worth more than anything you could spend that money on. It's peace disguised as numbers in a bank account. It's your future thanking your present for showing discipline. And that emotional reward will keep you going when motivation fades. Once you know how much to save, make it automatic. The more you rely on willpower, the more likely you are to slip. Automation turns good intentions into routine. It removes the daily decision-making and makes saving effortless. Set up a system where a fixed amount transfers from your main account into your emergency fund every time you get paid. It doesn't need to be huge. It just needs to be consistent. The power of automation is that it keeps your goals moving forward quietly in the background, even when life gets busy or unpredictable. Over time, you'll start to notice the impact of this invisible habit. Your balance grows, slowly at first, then faster. And what's even more powerful is what it does to your mindset. You start thinking of that money as untouchable, sacred even. It stops feeling like something you're giving up and starts feeling like something you're building. The structure gives you freedom, because now your savings are no longer dependent on your mood or memory. They happen like clockwork. And when your system is working for you, not against you, you'll feel the quiet satisfaction of control. That's one of the most empowering feelings in life. Realizing that your future is being cared for without constant stress or effort. Automation isn't just a tool. It's an act of self-trust. It says, I believe in the person I'm becoming. And that belief, repeated month after month, compounds into confidence just as powerfully as the money compounds in your account. As your savings begin to grow, you'll need to decide where to keep your emergency fund. And this choice matters more than most people realize. The key is finding a place that's safe, separate, and accessible when you truly need it. It shouldn't be tied to your everyday spending account, where it's easy to tap into for non-emergencies. Instead, choose a simple savings account or a money market account that earns a little interest, but still lets you withdraw when necessary. The goal is to protect your fund not just from emergencies, but from temptation. Think of this account as a vault, not locked away forever, but secured enough that you have to think twice before opening it. That little pause, that bit of friction, can be the difference between keeping your safety net intact and draining it for something impulsive. And when you see that balance sitting there, untouched and growing, it will represent something much deeper than money. It will represent discipline, foresight, and your ability to put your long-term peace above short-term comfort. And perhaps most importantly, keeping your emergency fund separate builds emotional clarity. When everything's in one account, your mind gets messy. You're never sure what's safe to spend and what's not. But when your emergency fund lives in its own space, It becomes a silent guardian, there when you need it, invisible when you don't. That separation gives you confidence to live your daily life without constant worry, knowing that if the unexpected arrives, you've already taken care of tomorrow. When most people hear the phrase cutting costs, they imagine restriction, giving up the things that make life enjoyable. But that's not what this step is about. It's not about living small. It's about living smarter. It's about recognizing that every rupee, every dollar is energy, and that energy should serve your peace, not your impulses. The goal isn't to punish yourself. It's to make space for your security. Because the truth is, you already have enough. It just needs to be redirected toward what truly matters. Start by looking at your regular expenses and asking a simple question. Does this bring me lasting value? You might be surprised by how many automatic payments you stopped noticing. Subscriptions you forgot to cancel. Memberships you don't use, small comforts that silently drain your balance. When you let those go, you're not losing anything meaningful. You're reclaiming control. And once you feel that first bit of power return, something shifts. You start realizing that simplicity isn't deprivation. It's liberation. And what's most beautiful is how quickly these small changes add up. Canceling one subscription, cooking at home twice a week, choosing experiences over things. Each act is a quiet step toward your goal. Within a few months, you'll see the difference not just in your bank account, but in your mindset. You'll start to feel proud of your restraint, not resentful. Because now, every time you say no to something unnecessary, you're saying yes to something priceless. Your stability, your peace of mind, your freedom. Cooking at home might sound like a small thing, but it's one of the most powerful habits for financial freedom. When you prepare your own meals, you're not just saving money. You're reclaiming time, mindfulness, and intention. Eating out feels convenient, but often becomes a reflex, a way to fill time, not hunger. By cooking, you learn to slow down, to nurture yourself in a way that fast food never can. It becomes less about cost cutting and more about grounding yourself in a rhythm that's good for both your wallet and your well-being. And there's something deeply rewarding about it, about taking what you already have and turning it into something sustaining. You begin to notice how often we mistake comfort for convenience, and how much joy lies in simple effort. Each meal prepared at home is a small victory, not just for your budget, but for your awareness. Because now, instead of trading money for speed, you're trading time for growth, and that's a much better exchange. Over time, this habit creates ripples. The money you save from eating out less often becomes part of your emergency fund, and that fund starts to grow faster than you expected. But more than that, you start to develop discipline, the kind that spills into other areas of life. You plan better. You think ahead. You become intentional. That's the real benefit. Not just extra cash, but a stronger, more self-reliant you. The final and often overlooked part of cutting costs is mastering the art of smart spending. It's not about denying yourself everything. It's about making every purchase meaningful. When you buy something, ask yourself, Will this still matter to me a month from now? If the answer is no, let it go. We live in a world designed to make us spend, to believe that happiness can be bought one click at a time. But true contentment doesn't come from more things. It comes from knowing you have enough. Practicing smart spending turns consumption into mindfulness. You start to see shopping not as a reward, but as a choice. You look for quality over quantity, value over trend. You stop chasing the thrill of buying and start embracing the peace of having. That shift is subtle, but it's life-changing. Because when you stop being controlled by impulse, you start being guided by intention. And soon, you'll notice something profound. You're not just saving money. You're changing your relationship with it. You're no longer reacting to marketing trends or emotions. You're making decisions from a place of strength. And with every conscious choice, you're telling your future self, I've got you. That's what cutting costs really means. Not restriction, but protection. It's not about living less. It's about living wiser. There comes a point when saving more isn't enough. You also need to earn more. But don't think of this as greed or overwork. Think of it as expansion. It's about opening new doors for yourself. Finding creative ways to increase your income without losing your peace. Maybe it's a skill you already have. Something you do effortlessly that others would happily pay for. Maybe it's a passion you've buried, waiting for permission to be valuable. That's the beauty of today's world. You don't need to wait for opportunity. You can create it. Start small. Offer to tutor, freelance, design, write, bake, edit, coach, or consult. Whatever comes naturally to you, that's your first bridge to extra income. You don't have to build a business overnight. All you need is one way to generate something new, because that first extra bit of money, however small, feels powerful. It's proof that your time and talent can create change. It's a reminder that you are never truly stuck, that you always have options, and that awareness, that spark of possibility, often grows faster than you expect. Soon, this side income begins to feel like more than money. It's momentum. You start to see the direct link between your creativity and your stability. The effort you put in comes back to you in tangible ways. And when you use that income to feed your emergency fund, you're doing something incredible. You're turning your skills into safety, your ideas into independence. That kind of earning doesn't just grow your bank account. It grows your confidence. Another overlooked way to boost your income is through the things you already own but no longer need. Look around. In your closet, your garage, your drawers. So much of what we call clutter is actually hidden potential. The unused electronics, the clothes that no longer fit, the tools collecting dust, they all hold value. When you sell them, you're not just freeing up space. You're converting the past into progress. Each sale is a step closer to your goal, a way of saying, I'm moving forward lighter and more intentional. There's something surprisingly emotional about letting go. It teaches you detachment, the ability to separate your sense of worth from the things you own. And in that process, you discover how little you actually need to feel fulfilled. You start valuing experiences, freedom, and peace more than possessions. That mindset shift makes it easier to save, easier to prioritize, and easier to stay on track when life tempts you to spend. As your surroundings simplify, your mind does too. You begin to see clearly. Wealth isn't about accumulation, it's about alignment. It's about making sure your resources serve your future, not weigh you down. By selling what no longer serves you and funneling that money into your emergency fund, you're turning release into resilience. You're saying goodbye to what's old and building security for what's next. Sometimes, the key to earning more isn't a side hustle. It's recognizing your value where you already are. Too many people underestimate the power of asking for what they deserve. Maybe you've been in your job for years, giving your best, showing up, making things happen, yet your paycheck hasn't reflected your growth. It's easy to think, it's not the right time, or I should just be grateful. But gratitude and ambition can coexist. You can appreciate your job and ask to be paid fairly for your contribution. When you start advocating for yourself with confidence, clarity, and facts, you step into your power. It's not about demanding. It's about recognizing your worth. When you do, you're teaching others how to value you too. And even if the answer isn't immediate, the act itself builds courage. It tells your subconscious, I deserve abundance. That belief alone shifts how you show up. More assertive, more inspired, more open to new possibilities. And sometimes, when you speak up, life meets you halfway. A raise, a promotion, a new opportunity. But even if it doesn't come right away, you've set something in motion. You've stopped waiting for permission to grow. Because boosting your income isn't just about money. It's about self-respect. It's about knowing that your time, energy, and skill are worthy of reward. And that mindset, once awakened, changes everything. Protecting your emergency fund is not just about guarding your money. It's about guarding your peace. After you worked hard to save, to cut back, to finally see that small cushion of security grow, it becomes more than numbers in an account. It's a symbol of your resilience, of every late-night decision to say no to instant gratification and yes to your future. But once that money sits there, temptation often follows. You'll tell yourself, just this once, I'll dip into it and put it back later. And that's how the first crack appears. Protecting your fund means protecting the version of yourself who worked so hard to build it. The version who believed in a safer tomorrow. There will be moments when life tests your boundaries. Friends might plan a trip you can't afford. You might see a sale that feels impossible to skip. Or maybe you'll convince yourself that upgrading your phone is somehow urgent. But here's the truth. Real emergencies are not predictable, and they don't wait for convenience. When that unexpected hospital bill or sudden job loss hits, it won't care how good that vacation felt. This fund is your shield, your buffer against chaos. It is sacred, and the moment you start using it for anything less than true emergencies, you weaken your own safety net. Protecting your emergency fund is about emotional discipline. It's about honoring the promise you made to yourself when you started this journey, that you would never be caught off guard again. One of the best ways to protect your emergency fund is to make it slightly out of reach. Not impossible, but inconvenient. Keep it in a separate account, away from your daily spending. Automate it. Hide it. Let it grow quietly in the background of your life. When you see it as untouchable, you begin to respect it differently, not as extra money, but as untouchable peace of mind. And when the time does come, when a true emergency forces your hand, you'll use it with clarity, not guilt. You'll know that this is what it was meant for, to keep you standing when life tries to push you down. Protecting your fund is protecting your calm, your confidence, and your future self from unnecessary storms. There comes a moment after the storm. When the emergency hits, you use your fund, and for a brief second, you feel both relief and loss. Relief, because you had something to fall back on. Loss, because that safety cushion you worked so hard to build is suddenly gone. And in that moment, it's easy to feel defeated. You might even think, what's the point of saving again if it can vanish so quickly? But that's the beauty of the emergency fund. It did its job. It protected you when you needed it most. It softened the blow of life's unpredictability. Rebuilding it isn't starting over. It's proof that your plan worked. And this time, you rebuild not from fear, but from strength, because you've seen the power of being prepared. The rebuilding phase tests your patience and commitment in new ways. It's not as exciting as when you first started saving. The urgency feels lower, the motivation weaker. But this is where emotional resilience matters most. Remind yourself that you've already done the hardest part once, creating something out of nothing. Now you're just restoring it. Set small milestones. Celebrate small wins. Even if it's just a few dollars a week, it's progress. Don't let the gap between where you are and where you want to be discourage you. Instead, let it remind you of what you survived, what you overcame, and how you stood strong when it mattered most. Rebuilding is an act of self-respect. It's saying, I will not let one storm define me. And as you rebuild, something deeper changes inside you. You start viewing your emergency fund not just as money, but as proof of your adaptability. Every deposit becomes a quiet affirmation. I'm capable. I'm stable. I'm ready. And one day, you'll look at that account balance again, see it back to where it was, or even stronger, and realize that you've rebuilt more than just your finances. You've rebuilt your confidence, your courage, and your ability to rise again after being knocked down. That's the real victory, not just in saving money, but in knowing that no matter how many times life makes you start over, you can always rebuild. Maintaining a habit of saving is where true transformation happens. Building your emergency fund once is a milestone, but keeping the discipline alive, month after month, is what shapes your identity. This is where saving stops being a task and becomes a part of who you are. You begin to see money differently, not as something that slips through your fingers, but as a tool you control with purpose. There's a quiet pride in watching even small amounts add up, in knowing that every transfer, every choice to save instead of spend is an act of self-care. It's like watering a plant that represents your future. Slowly, steadily, it grows, and so do you. The truth is, habits are built not on motivation, but on consistency. There will be days when saving feels easy, and others when it feels impossible. You'll have temptations, unexpected expenses, and moments where your willpower runs thin. But maintaining the habit isn't about perfection. It's about showing up anyway. Even if it's just a few dollars, even if life feels heavy, you keep the rhythm alive. Because each time you choose to save, you're reminding yourself that your security matters, that you are capable of building stability, one small choice at a time. Over time, that consistency becomes a quiet, unshakable strength. Eventually, maintaining your emergency fund becomes second nature, like breathing. You stop questioning whether you should save. You just do it. And in that shift, something powerful happens. The fear that once ruled your financial life begins to fade. You're no longer reacting to crises. You're prepared for them. You carry a sense of calm wherever you go, because you know you have your own back. Maintaining this habit is more than financial discipline. It's self-trust in motion. And once you build that, it spills into every area of your life. Your relationships, your work, your dreams. Because when you can trust yourself to protect your future, you begin to live with a peace that no paycheck or purchase can buy. At the end of this journey, remember, building an emergency fund was never about achieving perfection. It was never about chasing the biggest number or racing to reach a goal before anyone else. It was about peace. The quiet kind of peace that lives beneath the noise of everyday life. The kind that lets you sleep soundly at night, knowing that if tomorrow brings uncertainty, you'll still be okay. It's the peace that whispers, "You're safe now." The peace that steadies your breath when others are panicking. The peace that reminds you that no matter how unpredictable life becomes, you have built something that stands firm. Your emergency fund isn't just money in an account. It's a shield woven from your consistency, your patience, and your hope. And that hope, that belief in a better tomorrow, is far more powerful than any dollar amount. It's what transforms fear into faith, anxiety into assurance, and scarcity into calm. You didn't just save money. You rewrote your story. Every deposit, every moment of restraint, every time you chose long-term peace over short-term pleasure, you were becoming someone new, someone grounded, someone prepared. Those small sacrifices that once felt invisible, skipping a coffee, saying no to a want, setting aside even a few coins, they weren't small at all. They were steps toward power. You built confidence where there was once doubt. You created control where there was once chaos. You found strength in the spaces where you once felt vulnerable. And that strength doesn't fade when the balance drops or the numbers change, because it's no longer just about what's in your account. It's about what's inside you. You've learned to prepare without panic, to plan without fear, and to face uncertainty without losing hope. That is true financial freedom, not the illusion of wealth, but the reality of security. And as you move forward, let that peace become part of your rhythm. Keep saving, even when it's hard. Keep protecting, even when it's tempting to let go. Keep rebuilding, even when you have to start from scratch. Not because you're scared of what might happen, but because you've learned the beauty of being ready. Because you now know that money, when guided by purpose, becomes something deeper than numbers. It becomes clarity. It becomes calm. It becomes a quiet form of love. Love for your future self. Love for your family. Love for your stability. And someday, when the world feels uncertain again, you'll take a deep breath, glance at that fund, and feel the same warmth you're feeling now. You'll remember that you built this peace with your own 2 hands. You'll stand a little taller, not because life is perfect, but because you are prepared. You built more than an emergency fund. You build a foundation of resilience, balance, and faith in your own strength. You've learned that security isn't the absence of struggle. It's the ability to face struggle without losing your center. So take this with you, this calm, this power, this quiet confidence. Let it shape the way you live, the way you plan, the way you dream. Because perfection was never the goal. Peace was. And now, it's yours to keep, no matter what tomorrow brings. Take a deep breath. You made it here, through the reflection, the lessons, the quiet realizations that sometimes security isn't building grand leaps, but in steady steps. Building an emergency fund isn't glamorous. It doesn't get applause or instant results. But what it gives you is something far more precious. Peace of mind, confidence, and freedom. Freedom from fear. Freedom from uncertainty. Freedom from that constant voice that once said, "What if I can't handle it?" You've proven that you can. You've proven that you can create stability from intention, that you can build safety from discipline, and that you can find peace even in the unpredictable rhythm of life. You didn't just change your finances. You changed your mindset. You shifted from surviving to preparing, from worrying to owning your power. So as you close your eyes tonight, know this. The calm you feel right now isn't the end of a chapter. It's the beginning of a stronger one. Keep building, keep believing, and keep protecting your peace.